Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something that feels, well, pretty significant, maybe even surprising given recent trends. The U.S. Army has apparently met its active duty recruiting goal for fiscal year 2025.
Yeah, and get this, 4 months early.
4 months ahead of schedule. Wow.
And the source we're looking at for this deep dive, it's an article published by U.S. Army Public Affairs, came out just recently, June 3rd, 2025.
Right. So our mission here, as always, is pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Right.
We're going to pull out the key facts, the numbers, and, the significance.
But only as presented within this specific source material.
Yeah.
Sticking strictly to what the Army's report says.
Exactly, just the facts from this document.
Yeah.
And the core number it highlights is over 61,000 future soldiers signed contracts.
Over 61,000. That's the figure.
Hitting that number itself is notable, but like you said, doing it a full 4 months before the fiscal year even wraps up, that timing really jumps out.
It absolutely does. And what's particularly interesting, I think, when you look closer at the numbers in the article, is the context. The source points out that this FY25 goal, the target of over 61,000, it's actually more than 10% higher than the goal they had for FY24.
Wait, really? The FY24 goal?
Yeah, that was 55,000. So like you said, a higher target.
So they didn't just hit a goal early, they hit a significantly higher goal early. Okay, that definitely adds another layer here.
Mm-hmm.
The article also talks about the pace of recruiting, doesn't it? Something about momentum.
It does. It mentions the momentum behind this achievement. It says the average number of contracts signed per day, well, it was exceeding last year's levels.
By how much?
By as much as 56% during the same period.
56%. Wow. A jump like that suggests a real acceleration,
Yeah.
a serious pickup in pace.
It certainly seems that way. And the source, it offers some perspective on this acceleration by including insights from the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll.
Okay. What does he say?
Well, he credits specific factors and people within the Army. He gives a lot of praise, actually.
Yeah, I saw that. He calls out the colossal efforts, I think was the phrase.
That's it. Colossal efforts of Army recruiters and drill sergeants, saying they were crucial.
And he also makes a pretty strong statement about the recruits themselves, saying these 61,000 choosing to serve represent the best of America.
He does. And he links this moment to the Army's history, too. The article notes the Army is nearing its 250th birthday. That's June 14th, 2025.
Right around the corner.
And Secretary Driscoll states that these future soldiers, they're the ones who will carry forward that long legacy.
Okay. And the article, it includes a direct quote from Secretary Driscoll, right? Where he thanks the Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, and the Secretary of Defense, Hegseth.
Yes, it does.
He specifically attributes the leadership and support for equipping, training, and supporting these future soldiers to them, especially, as they face global uncertainty and threats.
Exactly. That perspective on the support structure is included right there in the Army's own communication, presented as his view.
Got it. So reported as his statement.
Yeah. And the source also quotes Driscoll making the point that, quote, putting soldiers first is having a tangible impact. He suggests this recruiting success shows young people still want to be part of what he calls the most lethal land fighting force.
Okay. So looking at all these pieces from the article, the numbers, the early timing, the comparison to last year, Secretary Driscoll's comments, how does this specific source kind of wrap it all up? How does it frame the achievement for its readers?
Well, the U.S. Army Public Affairs article itself, it explicitly frames this recruiting success as a significant turning point for the Army. That's the language they use.
A significant turning point.
Okay, and the conclusion it draws goes even further. It suggests that this achievement and the surge in interest leading up to it indicates, quote, a renewed sense of patriotism and purpose among America's youth.
Interesting. So it's not just reporting the numbers, it's offering an interpretation of what those numbers might mean about younger generation.
That's how the source presents it, yes.
Okay, so for you, listening right now, what we've basically distilled from this official Army source is this. A clear, quantifiable event meeting a significantly higher recruiting goal months ahead of schedule.
And apparently fueled by some substantial momentum, judging by that daily contract increase.
Right. But the source itself, as you said, doesn't just report the facts, it interprets them. This points to a significant turning point.
And even suggests it reflects a deeper shift in the sentiment of young Americans specifically, that renewed sense of patriotism and purpose.
So here's something to think about. Based only on the perspective presented in this source, if this uptick in military interest is, as the article suggests, reflecting renewed patriotism and purpose among America's youth, What might that tell us about the current aspirations or maybe the concerns that are really resonating with young people today?
Yeah, what does that potentially signal? It's definitely food for thought, based on how this Army source frames their own success.